Hello, here we are. Thanks to everyone in the chat waiting for us. Little technical difficulties. Scott bailed me out, and hopefully we'll be able to take calls and you guys can hear me okay. We have Julie Rappaport, PAC certified therapist, here with us this week. Episode 5?
Right.
Episode 5. My mind was blown the very first time we talked about attachment styles and how that theory of how you were bonded with your primary caretaker sort of can shape how you deal with relationships in the future. And I think a lot of people were very intrigued by that. And we've decided to break down some of those common styles of attachment so that we can sort of dig deeper into them because we always mention them every week and people have a lot of questions about them and we never really get to dig deeper into them. So today is the day. Julie, which attachment style are we going to learn about today?
We're going to learn about the anxious attachment style. And there's, you got to realize that there are, books that are written about attachment. And so, this is, we're going to cover as much as we can in this small period, but, it's like well researched about and goes in depth. And so trying to just give as much as an overview as possible, but also if you have specific questions, like feel free to drop those in the chat or call, and so that I could specifically address that. That might kind of help to hone it a bit. But there, I'm going to just write this of like, I've got a little board that I'm going to, so there's 4 different types of attachment. And I'm just going to write these down so that you guys can see. So there's secure, and in PAC terms, and that's the work that I do, we call those anchors. Then there's anxious, and we call those waves.
What are they?
Waves.
Waves, okay.
Avoidant attachment, we call them islands. And then there's disorganized, and that's just kind of in and of itself a separate kind of category. It's a lot of that kind of can have to do with a lot of trauma.
They're like typhoons.
What'd you say?
They're typhoons, monsoons, typhoons, hurricanes.
Yeah.
Islands, waves, disorganized. Sounds chaotic.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear, like we don't, as clinicians, hopefully, we don't sit there and label our couple in session and say, well, you're a wave, or oh, you're an island, because there's tendencies, as well as nobody really likes to be pigeonholed, but it just helps to when you know these things about yourself, then you can, as well as your partner, it's better, you're better able to understand, you're better able to cater to their needs, as well as your own, and kind of understand one another better.
Sure, that makes sense. Is it fair to say, though, that people primarily fit into one of those 4? Is it common to see people sort of straddling a couple of those, depending on their upbringing or what you discover?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can have kind of a mishmash. Sometimes you could have, 2 islands in a relationship, and they could act very islandy. Or you could have 2 islands in a relationship, and one is like a more severe island, and therefore kind of trumps the other one. And so then the other one starts to look more wavish. So it's you just got to kind of go with what's presenting, as well as, you might get into a different relationship and then something else gets triggered. So then you're acting, and behaving a totally different way. So it's kind of, it's an interesting puzzle, and so that's, clinicians are hopefully well versed enough to help piece it all together.
Yeah, sounds fun. Okay.
Okay. So the anxious attachment. Um, I just figured I was gonna help draw something with regards to anxious attachment. So anxious attachment, we'll just start off with like a typical, so this would not this would be, we'll erase this. This would be like an ideal scenario where this is caregiver.
I'm going to try to make you bigger here. Let's do this so that
Okay,
people can see you. How do I do that? Oh
there we
boy.
go.
There you go.
And this is baby. Okay. So caregiver ideally is not a chocolate chip cookie, but has all of these resources. So it's very well resourced. And when that happens,
What do you mean by that?
caregiver,
When the caregiver is resourced. What does that mean exactly?
they are grounded in themselves. Perhaps they've done a lot of therapy. Perhaps they have a therapist. They have friends. They have, an outlet like maybe athletics or gym or, self-care in that way. They work. They have all these different things that are fueling them
And this
so
is when
that
we say
they're
caregiver,
not
we're talking about like a mom or
in
a
need,
dad or a
really.
guardian.
Um, Correct. And so they're getting replenished from the outside of these resources, right?
Yep.
So these resources replenish them, which are these black marks. So then ideally, since they're real resource, they then can give, so baby comes in with maybe one or two resources. They then can give to baby to fill baby up. And, when or we'll just say mom in this case, when mom is giving, taking away these resources, she's getting replenished from the outside so that she's not depleted, right? This is ideal.
Okay.
And this would probably create a more secure functioning individual as the baby.
Okay.
What oftentimes happens with anxiously attached individuals is this is caregiver. Baby comes in this way, and the caregiver is under resourced. So they just don't have these things that replenish them. So either they're immature or they're just they just don't have good self-care, whatever it is. And intuitively, the baby knows this and looks at the situation and says, oh crap, what am I going to do here? Because I need, but mom, again, we'll just go with mom doesn't have to give to me. So what baby does intuitively, there's three things that it can do. One, it can give to mom with the idea of if mom is then filled, so I'll give what I have of me. And then if mom is more resourced, then she hopefully can give back to me. So it kind of sets up a give to get.
Okay.
The other thing that can happen, and it can be all three of these too, is that baby says, oh crap, mom is under resourced, she's not gonna be able to give to me, so I just won't have any needs. I just don't have any needs, because if I don't have any needs, I won't deplete mom, and therefore I'm good. Okay.
So like a self-preservation type.
Yep.
Situation.
Survival.
Mm-hmm.
This is all based on survival. The other thing that can happen is, mom is under resourced. She can't meet my needs. I'll just meet my own needs. Nobody else is going to be able to meet them, so I'll just meet my own. So those are kind of, I would say, the three things that anxious, and we call them anxious avoidant. So if I mix match anxious and anxious avoidant, just know that they're one and the same, even though there's another category called avoidant.
Okay.
So anxiously, that kind of is something that people who are anxiously attached, yes, stressed help, a stressed out mom, overwhelmed mom is an under-resourced mom. So they could filter through. Either I meet my own needs, I have no needs, or I'm unaware of any needs, or I'll meet somebody else's needs. I'll take care of them with the hopes that they'll take care of me.
Take care of me.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then give us some examples or things that can go sort of sideways in relationships if you are one of these people.
Well, what happens, that if we look at the scenarios where it didn't go so well with an under-resourced mom, oftentimes the child then has to kind of, and this happens because when we're just going with mom rather than primary caregiver, I'm just going to say mom just for the sake of mom, making it easier, but it could be dad, it could be whoever your primary caregiver was. Mom is kind of it comes across a little bit immature. She doesn't necessarily have a good relationship with her partner, in which case she has no one to rely on. So oftentimes then the kid becomes the confidant, in which case that makes the kid grow up faster than they should. They kind of have to become a little adult. They get told things that they probably shouldn't know. They, kind of bad boundaries. They then wind up having to take care of that parent. And so that's the wrong order, right? The parent needs to take care of the child. And so as a result, the kid, rightfully so, grows up with some resentment, because they got ripped off. Their childhood got ripped off. They didn't just get to be a kid. And while they kind of could get kudos for being the special person that mom confides in or whatever, it comes at a big price. And so there's another piece to this whole thing with their upbringing, but I'll come back to that. But if that's the scenario, then they enter into a romantic relationship with that baggage, with that resentment. And they tend to choose partners where that gets replayed, where they're having to take care of that other person, where they're it's not really fair, where they are kind of the responsible one. They are, kind of over functioning. And then they're pissed off about it. And so yes, there's the thing that's going on in the relationship, but it's also, there's the baggage from the past that's then it's like the relationship just kind of added on to the shit pile that was already there. And so that's a setup for it not going so well. And so part of that piece is helping that person to grow up, because they're kind of stuck in this life was unfair kind of child piece of them, and helping them to kind of just, and the other piece is that they don't necessarily know their needs. They know what everybody else needs because that's how they had to orient. But they don't really know what they need, but then they expect their partner to know what they need. So they kind of live in this fantasy zone of, you should know what I need, and why don't you? And I'm pissed that you don't, because on some level, that's the parent's job growing up, is to try to anticipate, is to try to know and see your child. Attune is what we call it. Attune to your child so that you can give them what they need. And again, they're pissed that they didn't get that.
Yeah.
So the other piece that I was talking about is, oftentimes too, they can be raised with their primary caregiver is inconsistent. Some days, it's like, some days they could, like, maybe the kid draws like a picture and is super excited to come and show the mom. So they come and they're all excited and they're like, hey, look. And the mom is preoccupied or overwhelmed or whatever, and is like, kind of shuts them up, shoos them away, or is like, oh, I don't have time for that, whatever. And then another time they might come with the picture and the mom is really kind of glomming a little bit more. So it's like, there could be two extremes and the kid never knows what it's going to get. So in relationship, again, for better or for worse, we tend to choose things that we're trying to repair things from our childhood. And so those people might choose partners that have a hard time with consistency. So then it strikes up those wounds again. So in working with somebody that has this template, if you're in a relationship with somebody who was raised with inconsistency, you have got to be consistent. You have to be consistent. Otherwise, you're going to just get.
Who's gone? Can you guys see me, or can you hear Julie? I'm not sure if it's my internet or her internet. If you guys in the chat can tell me, that would be awesome.
There you are.
Was it me?
Sorry, I don't know. It might be me. I don't know.
Who was it, guys? Tell us who was. We can see Pat and hear you, but Julie's frozen. Okay, phew. Thank God it's not me. It's usually me. So I feel good about it.
Great. I'm gone.
No, but you were saying, so the last thing I heard was super important for people of this attachment style to have a partner who's consistent. Consistency is really key.
Yes. And that if they say they're going to do something, that they do it. And if you can't do it because we're human and life happens, that you revisit the fact that you didn't do what you said you were going to, and you're sorry, and you need to, or hopefully before it happens, if you're like, oh yeah, I'll take the trash out, and then you're realizing, oh shit, I can't take the trash out, is that hopefully before that happens, you say, hey, I'm realizing that I committed to this, and yet it turns out that with my schedule, that's impossible to do before I leave for work or whatever. So can we renegotiate? Or if you do mess it up afterwards, is to say, hey, I know I said I would take out the trash, and I'm really sorry that I didn't do that. I'll do that when I get home, or whatever. Is, if you acknowledge it, it will go a long way. But oftentimes the people that, these anxiously attached people wind up with, they have a very difficult time with consistency, and because they're more avoidant. And so then when they do something that they said they were going to do and they didn't follow through, then they feel really bad and they just try to avoid saying anything, which then makes things worse. So that would, if you are more avoidant and you're with somebody who's more anxiously attached, I would just say, try your best to really stay consistent. And if you can't, then be preemptive, try to renegotiate an agreement or apologize when you mess up, and try to fulfill it when you can.
Yeah. Do people actually renegotiate taking out the trash? Because I know hopefully that was just an example, because I cannot imagine getting upset about someone not taking out the trash.
Well, it's,
having to
again, it's oftentimes, what people come in with as their complaints for therapy is not what it's about. It's not about the trash. It's about somebody feeling like you agree to things and then you don't do it, and
Never
so
follow
then it
through.
gets played out
Yeah,
around the trash.
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Scott had a big question, so let's get this on the screen here so we can take a look at it. What happens when one partner has a perceived resource need for the child and the other partner has a different perception, and now partner one is giving so much of themselves they become under-resourced?
What happens when one partner has a perceived resource need for the child? I don't necessarily
Maybe I
understand
think
the
what he
question.
means is that, like, maybe one parent is overparenting in terms of what they're giving, how they're resourcing their kids.
Oh, like hot helicopter parent or what?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, Scott,
Hmm.
let's see. Jody says, "My husband doesn't let me take out the trash." Use another example, right?
Dishes, dishes. Yeah,
It's
Scott,
just
if you could. Oh,
ooh, we have a phone call. Ready?
oh,
Let's see if
that's
I can
annoying.
figure this out. Scott, are you there? Hold on, let me put you on the right audio. Can you guys hear, anonymous caller, Mr. S?
This is Mr.
Yes.
S.
Hi, Mr.
You're
S.
live on the air, Mr. S.
So yes, helicopter parenting for sure.
So I
And
think that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then parent one is so under resourced because of the helicopter parenting that it creates a divide between the partners.
Yeah. So I think I think it kind of comes back to there's some discord in how to parent, probably. They're not on the same page with how to parent, and so that would be. Otherwise, I think it would not be draining of resources. It would be, oh, both of them parent this way and they're in accordance, and that's how it goes. And so resources aren't drained. But if only one person is parenting that way, I would almost guarantee that the other person has a problem with how they parent. Does that
I almost
does that feel
yeah,
like it makes sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
too
So
I
then
sometimes
probably
that.
should have asked this question.
Go ahead.
I probably should have asked this question before my daughter was in college.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that if that couple were to come, this mysterious couple were to come in um, to my office, I probably would then I wouldn't talk about the under resourcing. I would talk about, do they agree on how to parent, and have them take that up, because that's going to always cause discord if they're not on the same page with how to parent.
Right. Are you of the opinion, Julie, that parents should put their relationship before their children, or should they put their children before their relationship? Or d
That's
or
a
as long as
that,
both parents are on the same page, doesn't matter? I know
I
it's a
mean, we could do a show on that one, but it's, again, like we talked about pact and how the pact principle, we guide them towards something called secure functioning. And as far as I'm concerned, if the couple agree that, hey, the kids come first, we come second, or we come third, fourth, fifth, that's great in the sense that they agree on it. However, there's undoubtedly going to be resentment. There's just, if the kids always are taking priority over, your partner, one person or the other will get resentful. It almost always happens. Like that, you guys existed before this child existed. Why wouldn't you be at the top of the hierarchy? And if your relationship is going well, if you prioritize one another, it will be going well, and it will trickle down into the children. So, I mean, as a parent, like, of course your children are like your heart and soul, like you're going to prioritize them if they're ever in danger, or but in terms of, do they come before your partner? They can, if that's what you guys agree upon, but it's not, I don't see that going well.
It's not ideal.
I mean, it's ideal if it
That was a
works
great
for
follow-up,
them.
Kat.
Yeah.
It's ideal if it works for them, but I have seen couples agree that it's okay to not prioritize themselves and one another, and that the kids come first. And then inevitably, like in another session or two, something comes up where that is challenged as it's not actually working. So that's what I would say to that. If it works for you, great. That's great.
Yeah,
No
Scott, what
harm.
did you?
Don't change it if it isn't broken, kind of thing.
I was just going to say that was a great follow-up, and I'll just hang up and let the conversation keep going.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, that's always. I mean, I know for me growing up, that seemed to be always a point of contention between my parents. Was I feel like my mom put us first, the children first, and my dad probably put his career first, and they did not end in success either. I think they lasted about 17 years, and it's just interesting to see. And even as a child growing up in that environment, you see what that's like, and then sometimes you go down that same path when you have your own kids and you're in your own marriage. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it oftentimes a really great illustration of this is if you have the kids and one of the parents is fighting, they're having an argument with one of the kids, and the other parent then comes in and sides with the child or children.
Or how about if the spouse just does nothing but observes?
Yeah, that's, I
Which
mean, number
also
like
doing
it's
something.
giving the message to their partner they're on their own. If they do that, like, good luck, you're on your own. Like, why are they with you if they're on their own? And two, if they come and side with the children because they're prioritizing the children and they think the children are not being treated well or whatever, that is not going to go well, because that other parent, then you're playing good cop. The other parent is then going to be bad cop. And that is just, nobody wants to be bad cop. Nobody wants to be the bad guy.
Right.
And you really have to, it's about teaching the couple to can you support one another, even if you don't agree with how they're handling something. How can you be on their side? You come in, you regulate them, and then you get out of there. It's like, you have to know that your partner well enough that you can regulate them and then, and leave, so that they feel like, wow, you had my back, and now I can actually be in human brain and talk with my child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Here, let's see what Judy has to say. Oh, my old lady eyes. Child-centric marriages are why we have a lot of issues in society today, where people cannot understand why the entire world doesn't revolve around them. Yes,
Yeah, the entitled children. Yeah, the society now.
I was always the good guy. Yeah, Scott was bad cop. Yeah, it definitely does create some resentment.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
when you feel like you're not only on your own, but you've been thrown under the bus, and so then the children kind of are then in the middle. They have to kind of take a side, and that sometimes can be the one that's playing the good cop somehow is getting something out of, like, hey, I want to be seen in this light as the good cop, and it's important for me that you see me as the good one.
Right. Yeah.
Which
I think
that's not going to go well.
Yeah, and I think kids are smarter than we give them credit, and I think a lot of times too, they oftentimes will lose respect for a parent that can't, put their foot down, or, be a little more stern or have boundaries with them. I feel like, they can get away with more, and I think in the long run, at least being an adult looking back at my own childhood, thinking, that doesn't necessarily warrant a whole lot of respect from the child to the parent.
No, it's like creating like you're their friend rather than you're their parent. And yes,
Yeah.
you can be their friend as their parent, but your responsibility is not to make them like you. Your responsibility is to protect them and keep them safe in an age appropriate way.
Raise responsible humans is kind of how I see it. Like, not
Oh,
raise
man.
assholes. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying really hard not to raise assholes.
Some people's kids,
What so the dynamic with kids, because you're a couples counselor, you probably see couples that don't have kids, couples that do have kids. I would imagine kids really complicate the relationship dynamic. And I mean, do we see sort of like better successes with couples that don't have children, or does that come with a whole host of other issues? And maybe the fact that they don't have children is one of the issues.
Yeah, and good point. I mean, I would say that it might not be as complicated, maybe. It's a little less, it tends to be, if there's less cooks in the kitchen, right, then there's then it's more it's more simple. So I think kids add in this just extra piece that of draining, taking up resources, and taking, you got to drive them here and drive them there, and they've got this and they've got that, and you've got your life, and where does your partnership come in? So it's a little bit more convoluted and complex. I don't know if success rate is, I don't know those statistics.
Yeah, I just wondered, maybe from your own experience. And then, okay, so I'm trying to get back to the anxious folks. Do anxious attached people tend to be good cops or bad cops?
I don't know that answer.
Or is there a correlation?
They can look a little, they can look a little hysterical at times. They can look a little irrational. They can look, because they're more vocal with their complaints, with their kind of dissatisfactions, and because of that resentment, and sorry, because of their resentments, then they're just, they're more vociferous about things. And because if they are with somebody who's more avoidant, that person can look like they're just they're not doing anything wrong. And, the person who's more anxiously attached feels often, has kind of this abandonment wound. And so when they are paired with somebody who's more avoidant, again, they're going to feel that abandonment. And so let's just take the example of having an agreement broken. And this would probably be a consistent pattern of inconsistency, where the anxiously attached person is just up to their limit of like, God, I'm having to do everything. You drop the ball. I either have to do it for you because otherwise it doesn't get done. So then I become your mom, or I leave it and I get pissed off that it's not being done. So it's, this catch-22, but they're just seething. And so, and they just think like, why aren't you just following through on what you said you were going to do? And so oftentimes that person can look just angry and, just angry all the time. And so they could look like a bad guy, I guess, in that way. Maybe not the bad guy in terms of parenting, but just just kind of like, oh, mom's always angry. Why is she so angry all the time? Not taking into consideration that it's, a system that the other person is looking really good because they're just, hey, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here. And that's the problem, is that you're enraging that other person because you're not actually stepping up to the plate and meeting them. And they feel abandoned.
That's interesting. Okay, so tie this in a bow for us.
Let's see. how do I tie it in a bow?
Is there hope for these avoidant these anxious attached folks to have a healthy
Oh,
relationship?
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, yeah, totally, totally, totally. There, it is not grim at all. I mean, it's extremely common, and really, what I think they need from a partner is consistency. So, kind of holding, really being able to talk to your partner about like, hey, I grew up with inconsistency, so this drives me absolutely crazy when if it happens this way, and so can you work this way with me? The other thing they're sensitive to is abandonment. So oftentimes just reassuring them, hey, I love you so much. You're the only one for me. Or, that if they can get that, it's really nice for them. Or you're so important to me. That's a nice thing to say to them because they didn't feel that important in their childhood. Everybody else was more important than them. And really nice thing for them also, and this is more convoluted than this, but I'll just give the overview, is to just ask them what they need, because nobody ever did that. It was always about what everybody else needed. So and that person that's anxiously attached oftentimes doesn't have any idea, and so just taking your time to think about what do you need in that moment, not like what do you need globally, what do you need esoterically, what do you need right here right now. And if you can ask them what do they need right here right now, keeping them in the present moment, and sitting with them if they say I have no idea, because they probably don't, because nobody ever asked them, right? But just keeping them in the moment, because oftentimes they will say something like, well, I just need you to be better on these agreements. Okay, great, but what do you need right now, right? And then oftentimes they'll if you give them enough time and support and just stay with them, they will come up with something, and that's an important skill that every adult needs to have.
Okay. Bruce wants to know if you've read the book The 5 Love Languages, or do you know about the different love languages? He asked it in the chat, so people are responding, but are you there? Are you frozen? I think she's frozen.
On my internet, I think is
The 5 love languages. That would be a good topic actually to talk about, like people and their love languages. I'd be interested to hear a little bit about that. So maybe that can be a future topic, Bruce. I like that as well.
What was
So
the topic? Sorry, I missed you.
the 5 love languages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
That is a good one. Okay, so yeah, what do you need from me in this moment, Ken? That's perfect. Exactly. Not just what do you need. So you gave us some advice on if we're dealing with someone who is anxious attached, how to treat, how to better deal with them. Are there some things that anxious attached people can do to help their situation or make life a little easier for them in their relationship? And then we'll probably just wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that their orientation is always out, external, external. And so, really coming back home, and what happens, we talked about saying no, to just being able to say no to somebody, even when you can do it. And what does that bring up for them? And actually asking yourself, what do I need? And where is the I? Because they're very oriented out. A lot of times there is no here. And so kind of sensing into their body, working, journaling. How do you come up with what do you need in order, and not what does everybody else need? And then you get resentful.
Right.
So that would kind of be the guide.
And then last question from Jody Lynn here. Is it safe to say that actually attached partner will have a hard time asking for help, assuming resulting in undue frustration?
Yeah, oftentimes anxiously attached individuals can be, they're just, they're a lot of times they're go-getters. They can do a lot, and they don't realize that they're overwhelmed until they're overwhelmed, kind of thing. Like there's no real ramp up. And it's because they're just, they had to kind of do everything themselves, and as well as take care of everybody else as a kid. And so they are prone to overwhelm. And usually that comes from a parent who was prone to overwhelm, therefore under-resourced. So it circles back around. So yes, so it is learning how to ask for help. If you're in, but if you, again, going back to when we started of like, I don't have any needs, like if that was a part of your coping strategy, it's going to be hard to ask for help because you don't need anything.
Right. You don't realize that you need anything.
Right. So getting some support, maybe from an individual therapist and such, to really start to realize, number one, we all have needs. We come into this world needy. We are not fully developed beings. And so therefore we're highly dependent, and that continues through our whole life. And and then just really honing in, like, number one, realizing that is totally okay, realizing that the probably rage that comes from not realizing that you have, or not having needs and not getting them met, and coping in the way that you did. And then beginning to really realize, like, figure out, what are my needs? What do I need? And that will give you a touchstone that you probably never had before, which will feel really, really good.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We are back next week at our normal time, noon, barring any, snowstorms or doctor's appointments or whatever else we have. We have lives and families and things that we have to take care of. So thanks for hanging with us this week, and accommodating this later time for us. Next week is which attachment style? Avoidant? I think it's avoidant. We lost Julie. Julie's already checked out because she knew we were finishing up. I think it's avoidant. Check the thumbnail. I'll get out something. I think it's already out on YouTube. Episode 6 is coming then. Thanks, guys, for watching and tuning in. And we will see you guys all next time on Living Happily Ever Awesome.